Awesome. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, what's up, Hilo News family? Welcome to another episode of the Can We Talk podcast, our show where we talk to dope people in the community doing dope things, and today is no different. This person is actually not exactly from our community, but she's a part of our community. But it's going to be a great conversation nonetheless. This is our special edition Miami Book Fair podcast episode, and we're going to be doing a lot of author interviews so you can meet and get to understand some of the authors that will be at the Miami Book Fair. And we're kicking it off with this amazing author. And I think this is really apropos because she has a book called American Diva. And I mean, sometimes I've been called a diva. She may be a diva herself, but I think this is a celebration of women and what makes us great. And I think this is a great way to kick off our conversation. So without further ado, I would love to welcome to the show Miss Deborah Paredez. Hey.
Hi there. Nice to be here, and so happy to be visiting Miami soon.
Yes. And Deborah, I want to make sure I got your last name. Did I say Paredez correctly?
It's Paredez, actually. So red in the middle. So
Paredez.
Very good.
I'm going to just say Deborah. Is that okay?
Good. No problem.
Thank you so much for joining us, Deborah. Look, this is going to be a really cool conversation. When I was reading into the book and I was like, this is an interesting, topic to dig into. And I think, with the climate of the world that we're in, especially with women possibly being the leader of the free world here in the United States, and just women being, badasses all around. I think your book, American Diva, is like a good read. I'm putting it up here so y'all can see for people to get into at this time. And so, you know what, I would, like to jump in with my question and ask you, Deborah, why this book and why now?
Sure, absolutely. So I have been in love with divas since, I was a kid, most likely because I had some amazing and very larger than life women in my life. As many communities of color do, there's often that eccentric auntie, who sort of lives her life out loud. And I was no different. But I also then became trained as a performance scholar and someone who studied performance. And I still, in all of the performances I loved over the years, I always would go back to divas. And I think that, in the course of my lifetime, I've realized divas have only become more and more central to our culture in the United States, right? Into the way we either aspire to be or into the way we talk about women in public, like, oh, she's such a diva, as a way to disregard women, or wow, I want to be like a diva to feel like in my most powerful self. And so for me, I felt like, as someone who's loved divas all along, as someone who doesn't see them as necessarily a bad thing, I wanted to kind of put out there my ideas of what I think divas have meant to me in my life, but also what I think they've meant and continue to mean in our larger culture, especially in communities of color.
That part. And, like you said, that is such a core figure, especially in women of color's life. Like, as you were speaking, I think of like a couple of women that came to mind who were larger than life. And I would look at as a kid and like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. But also too, these icons that we see on our televisions and on our screens. And I wanted to ask you, I was reading and I see that Celia Cruz is a part of it, and Tina Turner, and even Venus and Serena Williams. How did you go about choosing the women that you wanted to focus on in your book?
So first and foremost, when I think of the word diva, I think of, first of all, someone who's extraordinarily virtuosic, like someone who is so incredibly great at what they do. And they also have a persona that's often larger than life, sometimes considered to be difficult, maybe even, but someone who's unapologetic about how great she is at what she does. And so that was, one definition that I definitely wanted to abide by. But honestly, I wanted to write about the women I have grown up loving and, have been a longtime fan of. So my diva pantheon is going to look different from yours or different from other people I absolutely love. And there was only a couple of hundred pages. So even my own favorites had to be cut. It was very very hard to have to trim out some of my favorites. And so it reflects, who I am generationally. It reflects who I am as a brown woman, as a Latina, so I think in that way, this is why you have Tina Turner and Rita Moreno and LaBelle and the Williams sisters, people I grew up with in some ways or helped me grow up.
I love that. And some of your diva pantheon icons, they're in mine as well, especially Tina Turner. Her story just of overcoming and just being an overall amazing, strong woman is really something to marvel after. For you, I see you break down like different aspects of these divas. Can you go into like the idea of like picking out different like characteristics or part of their life and why you wanted to have the book go in that direction?
Sure. As you mentioned, divas, I think, are really important in our lives, often because they show us how to overcome struggle. Tina Turner is a perfect example to not just sort of overcome it, but to do it with a sense of, flair or style or force, right? They often are models for how to overcome adversity. And for me, it was really important to focus on Black and brown divas in my book because I feel like women, and especially Black women, are often have either historically been excluded from the venerated role of diva, right? Or they've been disregarded as divas, but in a bad way. Like, oh, you're a diva because you are making too many demands, right? And I feel like for me, I wanted to sort of really shift and sort of blow up that whole notion and then say, no, actually, these are the women who are, in fact, reigning, as Aretha Franklin, does, as she's one of the other women I write about, or Grace Jones, who are absolutely in every way, virtuosic and all of that. So in each chapter, I look at a different diva and I think about what they teach, like a lesson they might teach us. So, when I talk about my aunt, I talk about style and how I learned about style from studying her from a young age, my Tia Lucia. Or when I talk about Tina Turner, I talk about what it means to come back and some things you don't come back from, right? But how she remade herself, at what some would consider like middle age, when many women performers are often sort of disregarded, right? Or if I think about someone like Celia Cruz and the way she helped mentor La India and how divas often teach us how to kind of make room for the next up and comer, right? So each diva, I think, can offer us lessons in survival.
I love that. And I really love your redefinition of diva because even as I'm looking and thinking about my own definition of it and my own bias of what the media has made me think about when I think of diva, and like you said, it's someone difficult or sassy or maybe rude or, this person who has this, arrogance about them. And it's really not that. It's about strength of a woman. And I love that you said that, like, being a diva, is about like the defining our power and displaying our strength. And so I think I'm going to now redefine diva for myself and really accept that term and not look at it in a pejorative way, but it's like, this is a positive and empowering term. Was that a part of your, goal or what you wanted people to walk away from with the book? And can you speak more to that?
Sure. I absolutely wanted people to rethink what we have thought about divas, right? Again, over the 50 plus years I've been alive, I've seen the term change from something that was often reserved for, virtuosic soprano singers in opera who were often white, right? To, popular sort of usages, to things like the ways that queer communities might refer to one another and like the Harlem drag balls, right? And things like that. But then also how it came to become like a dirty word, as I grew older in the 90s and as a word that was sort of used to disregard women. And then it also got used to kind of be applied to young girls even, right? And so I wanted to have us chart the changing meanings of this word to sort of look at how, in fact, the word has often then become a way to denigrate women instead of elevate them. But I am interested in actually sort of reclaiming that word in its, kind of original meaning of like, here's a person who is almost supernatural in her ability to inspire us, in her talents, and in her ability to endure often quite a lot of life struggles.
I love that, love that. And I want to switch gears just a little bit because I want people to know a little bit about you, Deborah. I know you're an author and columnist. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you come from? And so High Low News is all about hyper local. It's about the intimate stories of our communities. So tell us a little bit about Deborah. Like, where are you from? Where did you grow up? And then also too, how did you get into writing?
Sure. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, which is a majority minority city, right? Very largely Latinx communities. So that very much shaped, my relationship to America, being so close to the U.S.-Mexico border as a brown woman, identifying and disidentifying with what it meant to be American. And I grew up, I always loved performance, and I ended up getting a PhD to study performance, but I was a poet all along as well. And so I always loved writing. I always wanted to, very much inspired by actually, Black women writers and Latina writers like Ntozake Shanghai, people who were bringing together a range of writing styles in one way to sort of say, well, it's not quite a play and it's not quite a poem, or it's not quite a memoir and it's not quite criticism. I feel like I've been inspired by those kind of women of color writers and feminists to be a writer, to be someone who loves amazing performances. And so now I'm a professor. I sort of went into the path of being a professor and a writer, and I now live in New York City and teach at Columbia in the creative writing and ethnic studies programs there. And so that's where I get to teach a class about divas. That's where I get to think with my students and my colleagues about what it means to be a diva, what it means to be a woman who's unapologetic about what she does in the world.
I love that. And I would say this, you explained like an interesting background and career. What was it? What was that aha moment or that light bulb that went off for you that said, I want to become an author?
It's a wonderful story. When I was actually I think it was probably like 12 or 13 when I wrote my first poem, and I had an amazing teacher in my public school, my English teacher. It was just like, it wasn't like the best school or anything, but I had a teacher who cared about me, Julie Baskey. I still know her. And she encouraged me. She encouraged me to just keep writing. And she would show up and bring me books when she realized I loved poetry. And she gave me my first copy, I remember, of Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street. Right. And I didn't, she just put the books in my hand. And I think that's part of why I became a teacher, right? Was knowing such a profound impact that had on me, and so I felt like as I moved along in my life, I always say to my students, I write not because I already know the answers, but to figure them out. Like, writing helps me figure out why I loved Rita Moreno in West Side Story, or why I loved Tina Turner, right? Or why the music of LaBelle lifts me up and transports me to outer space, and I think that's part of what happened with my aha moment.
I love that. That's such a beautiful story. And, shout out to all of the public school teachers out there, especially right now in this country. A lot of them are fighting for higher wages and respect and just different resources in the classroom. So that's an amazing story that a teacher is, part of your story and your journey.
Absolutely. And why it's so important that we don't ban books and that we allow, especially in places like Texas and Florida, right? The importance of freedom of expression, I think, is really, really important.
No, definitely. So important. And, now American Diva gets to be a part of one of those special books that hopefully a teacher can give to a young woman or a young boy or non-binary student, and they see themselves in this. Deborah, what would you want someone to take away from reading American Diva?
I want them to feel like, one, they have a new understanding of what that term even means. And I would love for folks to also understand that divas have actually played such an important role in American understandings of freedom, right? Whether it's that, often, women like Aretha Franklin or Marian Anderson called up to sing the anthems of our country, even as Black women are not afforded the citizenship rights that they should be, right? Or in the ways that if I think about someone like, Rita Moreno or Lena Horne being at the March on Washington, or, that the divas and the songs that they sing have often played really important roles in how we think and aspire to live our lives as Americans, I think is something, whether it's Beyonce doing what she does now, or, or any number of people, I think yeah, I would love for people to sort of to think about that in a new way.
I love that. And you know what? We were talking about the Miami Book Fair is coming up November 17th through the 24th at Miami-Dade College in the downtown area. And so can you tell us what you'll be doing in conjunction with the Miami Book Fair, how people can see you? Will there be opportunities for signings or readings? Like, let us know what your involvement with the Miami Book Fair will look like.
Sure, absolutely. So I will be, having a reading and discussion of American Diva at the Miami Book Fair. And you can definitely come and hear me read and ask me questions. And I'm happy to sign books. I will be signing books there as well. And I'll actually also be participating in a poetry reading in an anthology of Latinx poetry, actually in another section of the book fair as well. So you'll get to experience me as a critic and as a poet if you so desire, if you haven't had too much already.
I think that's amazing. The Miami Book Fair has a very special place in my heart. I've been going since I was a little girl. My aunt who attended Miami-Dade College would take us as little kids. And so just have these really fun, nostalgic memories of Miami Book Fair. And so I'm hoping that people in our audience and beyond get to experience that. And now you'll be a part of their Miami Book Fair story. And so, guys, the Miami Book Fair, as I said, is taking place November 17th through the 24th. It's going to be at the Miami-Dade College. You can go to the Miami Book Fair website at miamibookfair.com, get all the information, go to the schedule. You'll be able to get the information on when Deborah will be having her events. And so also to check out a lot of amazing authors. And like Deborah said, books are important. We don't need to ban books. And this is how we get to see ourselves and learn more about ourselves. And I can't wait to dig more into this because some of the women that you're highlighting, I want to learn more about and see your perspective, but also too, some names that I'm not familiar with. I'm like, I want to know what's their story. What's their tea, the way Deborah broke it down.
Happy to share. And I'm very much looking forward to my visit. So thanks again.
No, you're welcome. And look, before I let you go, I want to know, who are your top 5 divas? I know you have a book and it's a lot of them, but if you had to choose 5, who would your top 5 divas be?
So, Aretha Franklin is way up there for sure. I had to actually, one of my favorites I had to cut because I just didn't have room in the story of my life that the book tells. And so another one would be Nina Simone. For sure. I have to put Venus and Serena up there because I just feel like, as great as they were and are and continue to be, not enough praise can be heaped on them for sure. And, Celia Cruz, I danced to her. I got through grad school because I was able to just go out and dance salsa to her over and over again. So she really got me through some important times. So those would be, I guess, up there.
I love
There's so
it.
many more and,
Yes.
younger ones as well. But those are the ones that come to mind in my early formation. And my great aunt, my Tia, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Definitely gotta have the Tia in there because I was thinking in my head, my top 5 would definitely include my grandma Elizabeth Carey Tate, who's gone on. She's one of the ancestors now, but she's definitely my definition of diva. So when you were saying that, I was like, she's going to say her grandma or at least an auntie or somebody.
Yes, my Tia Lucia Bustillo, for sure. She taught me everything I needed to know early on.
I love it. This is going to be amazing. Thank you. I'm looking forward to, I'm going to be out there at the Miami Book Fair. So hopefully we get to meet each other, Deborah, in person. Again, thank you so much for taking time to speak to local media, Black-owned, woman-owned media. I appreciate that. And I was a little bit nervous to talk to some of the authors because I'm like, are they going to do this? Will they, care about little old me? But this conversation has been so uplifting. And I appreciate you for seeing and giving us space and time.
I so appreciate the work you're doing. And I'm thrilled to be able to sort of communicate with your audiences who are the people I want to read the book. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. This has been amazing, guys. Make sure you go out and get American Diva. Hey, look at that cover. Oh my gosh,
that's
beautiful.
Tina Turner.
Yes, come on. I see it. We're rolling.
Exactly.
Get American Diva. Head to Miami Book Fair. Go to miamibookfair.com to get your tickets, to get all the information on the schedule. And Deborah, thank you again for coming on the Can We Talk podcast. Guys, it's been another amazing episode. You can follow us on all social media. We are on all the things. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere. Make sure you follow us. Those things help us be able to to do the work that we're doing. Also, for our loyal listeners and our loyal followers, we have exclusive content on our website at hillonewsmiami.com and our email newsletter. You can sign up at hillonewsmiami.com so you can get the newsletter and get content sent directly to your inbox of the exclusive stories that we shared there. Again, this has been another amazing episode. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching there on YouTube, and like and share if you're watching on Facebook. All of those things help us out so we can grow our audience. Again, this has been another amazing episode. This is the very special Miami Book Fair edition, and we're kicking it off with Deborah and the American Diva story. And all those divas out there, put it in the comments who your top 5 divas are. Let's show them some love.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.